Hello, what's up everybody? Welcome again to Ost Meyer Tutorials. And in this video we're gonna show you how to make a classic piano progressive house. Some kind of Eric Prydz, Prydz style and stuff like that. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and get -10% on mixing and mastering by Ost Meyer. For more details visit ostandmeyer.com or facebook.com/ostandmeyerofficial. And as you can see, we already prepared some tracks, some part of the arrangement to save the time. There are already some synths, drum samples preloaded in, and let's take a listen. This is some kind of sample effects. All the drum parts are already bounced as audio tracks. The kick drum is synthesized by the plugin called Kick Nicky Romero Edition from Sonic Academy. And as you can see, this kick drum is quite long in low ends, and it also has the same key as the track is. In this case we have A minor. We also prepared some instrumental tracks with some synths on them. For example, Anna, Spire, Zebra, Diva, Omnisphere and stuff like that. Some kind of pad here. Here we come up with strings, and of course the piano. The piano is actually the king of the instruments. For the piano we used the New York Grand Library for the Contact. In the past we used the Alicia Keys library, but it was too soft for this musical genre. So we came up with another library. And let's go to the bass. For the bass lines we use Zebra, pretty nice and deep sound. This is some kind of plucks. This is Spire. And this is Spire as well. I love this sound. And here we have another plucks. Sounds pretty trancey. This is a stab. We're gonna draw a midi line of it. It's a really useful thing for the rhythm. But the main thing here is piano. And we want it to sound really punchy. Now it sounds quite rough because it has no inserts and no sound effects on there. We're gonna process it live. But first play the MIDI part on the keyboard. I think it's enough. Let's all about the MIDI editing. This is a basic standard piano roll editor. Now we're going to quantize all the notes, pressing the Ctrl and A buttons together. Then we press the Q button a few times. Yeah, we have it. Now it's quantized. Now all the notes should have the same length. MIDI functions fixed lengths. Here we are. And then we make a fixed velocity. But for the much more musical sound, you have to highlight the edges of each chord, just increasing velocity on the lowest and highest notes a little bit. That works on every instrument. But now we won't do that, we just let you know how it works. Because first we have to correct the MIDI part of the melody a little bit. Here we go. Everything is really careful. Here we come up with the melody changes on the bars number 7 and 8. Got it? Now we have a 16 bars harmony. We save it. And now we start with the most interesting part of this video, the piano processing. Because it was still raw, first we start with the harmonic exciting. We use the sonic maximizer from BBE. And now we excite the second knob a little bit. After that we open the harmonic maximizer from the same BBE Sonic Suite package. Here we are. I think it's brilliant. Let's start with the EQing. We use a FabFilter Pro Q. And to make sure what and how to equalize, we're gonna use the built-in analyzer. And as you can see here, the main body of the sound starts at about 170 Hz. That means that everything below 150 Hz might be cut off. That range will be filled with another instruments. Next comes delay. This is the edge delay from waves. All the analog modes should be switched off because they produce some noises, which is not allowed in electronic dance music. Now we're going to tap a few times to set a rate. I think we use 1, 2, 4. Switch on the ping pong effect. And then we go to the low and high pass filters. And of course, the dry wet knob. Now I think we have to change the rate of the delay, just tapping. And now you can notice that we still don't have a compressor on the piano. We put the compressor after the delay, not before. It makes our piano dirty and pumpy. We're gonna set a hard knee. Our ratio is 4. The attack, I think, will be about 12 milliseconds. Still need a good transience on this piano. The release will work in automatic mode. Let's take a listen what we have. We may also overcompress the sound, applying dry mix on there. No, I think we're not going to do it this time. Now it sounds much better. And now you will hear the difference when the delay sits below and after compressor. As you know, all the classic mixing engineers use the delay as a send effect or use the after all the effects in the chain. So let's hear the difference of this trick. And now it's before the compressor. As you could hear, the results are totally different. We personally like to place the delay before the compressor, as it sounds much more dirty, smashy, and much more tasty to us. Let's get a little corrections on the low and high pass filters. As for the sidechain processing, we have here the special group channel called sidechain. And now we are routing our piano to this group channel. As for the sidechain, we don't use any compressors. We use such plugin called Volume Shaper from Cable Guys. I guess you remember it from the past tutorials. Tiny EQing corrections. You also may reduce a little bit of mid-range. But you have to be really careful with that, because you may remove the body itself. Okay, so here we go. I think it's brilliant. Here we have extra sidechain, but I think we don't need it anymore. We're gonna save the hardware resources and route it to the main sidechain group channel. And now let's start with the plug. Here we apply some H delay as well, remove any analog modes. We always recommend to use the mono control mode when you're producing or selecting the samples or selecting the synths to avoid any phase problems, phase issues. We have our monitoring system on the SPDIF, so we select the SPDIF if we want to hear the mono. Here we use the Kyrylo Golden Peak Presser, or GPP. As you can see, this plugin is quite simple. It doesn't have so much parameters as the normal compressor has, but it still works like magic. It's something in between the compressor and limiter. As you can see, we have that threshold here, the knee parameters and the release parameters and the gain. Let's play them together with the piano. I think it's much more than excellent. Here is our zebra bass. And then we come up with the MIDI editing again. Quantizing, just pressing a Q a few times. Fixed lengths. Fixed velocity. So now we have an accurate bass line. Let's play what we have done. Sounds superb. Corrections, corrections, and once again corrections. You actually got to spend a lot of time for these corrections. For the much more fatness of the sound, you have to add a saturate. We prefer to use a PSP mix saturator too. We'll have exactly this saturator because it doesn't destroy the transients, the attacks of the sound. Because we tested a lot of saturators, got an experience, and believe us, this saturator is the best one. And now let's start with the live piano play. Everything we do on the MIDI keyboard. We're gonna try to find out some lines, sequences to fill the rhythm. Let's play a little bit. Okay, it's enough. I think this line is great. Now we're gonna correct something. Okay, sounds fine. As always, we come up with corrections. Fixed length, fixed velocity. Yep, great, done. Now get the playback again. Now return to our chords. As you remember, we still didn't highlight their edges. So we're just gonna pump up the velocity on the lowest and highest notes. This is our top voice. We're gonna add the notes and push them up a little bit. Not much, just a little. And let's do the same with the bottom notes. And here we can see an issue. The changes were applied only to 8 bars, so we should delete everything else and copy our 8 bars that we have done. Now I can hear that it's too much high frequencies, so I'm gonna correct the EQing. Especially there are too much high and high mid frequencies. This range is really dangerous for human ears. Correct the delay a little bit. Everything has to be done very careful. Now I'm changing the rate of the delay. Now I try to experiment a little, making a second track version. This feature is available only in Cubase 7.5. Now you can see how does this feature work. It's very useful. So you can make a few versions of one track. Let's add some other cool sounds. Some kind of effect synth. As you can hear, it sounds really cool, so you need to process it anymore. Just try to find out the interesting line melody. remove the rubbish. Gotta quantize again. And of course, length and velocity. The worst thing that all these corrections take a lot of time, a lot of producing time. Now I think we got it. If you want to get much more brightness to the sound, the best way is to use an exciter instead of the EQ. That brings much more power to your instruments. Now I will switch on and off the exciter to hear the difference. Let this instrument play a little bit later, I think after 16 bars. Now it's great. And for this synth, we're going to duplicate the bassline MIDI part. Make it, I think, 2 octaves higher. There is, of course, another way to transpose, for example here. One of our track versions will play one octave lower. Now we make the sound fatter using the golden peak presser. Play with the automation a little bit. And as always, you can do whatever you want here. Music is not a science, it's not a mathematics, it's not a chemistry and stuff like that. So you get a free hands for improvise. Our time is off for today and we're going to finish this tutorial. Today you have learned how to make a classic progressive house melody with stabs, plugs and of course the piano. As well as you have seen how to mix and process the sound in this style. Stay tuned for our next tutorials, because we always have something interesting to show you in music production and sound engineering. So see you next time and goodbye. This video was filmed and produced by Kyrylo Rusanivsky. Have enjoyed this video? Don't forget to like, share and leave your comments. It was Ost Meyer Tutorials, the music and sound production podcast.